Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno, editor over at DodgerBlue.com. Matt, what are we, beginning of February? We're in the same month when pitchers and catchers report. You doing all right over there?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. This past week was grueling when, the community tour schedule came out, and then FanFest was sort of ending it on Saturday. And then Monday, early tomorrow morning, I'm heading out to, I think it's considered Thousand Oaks for the Justin Turner Golf Classic. So once I get through tomorrow, then I'll feel like, okay, I can kind of breathe a little bit. And then, we'll be about, 10 days away from pitchers and catchers getting going, and it'll be go time for us.
Is that Sherwood Country Club?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's
not
nice quite my neck of the woods. It's near my neck of the woods. It's you'll be impressed being out there. Shout out to our commenter, not Daniel Starkin, saying Daniel better be on. Lakers didn't play tonight. He has no excuse. Matt and I sent him that message, and I don't know if he pops in. Maybe we'll see what happens. But I do have to admit, if you see me coughing at some point or muting, I actually have the flu right now, which is good news and bad news. The bad news is I have the flu, meaning I have to be quarantined. The good news is I texted him out. I said, hey, we weren't supposed to record tonight, but let's roll. I feel pretty good, 85-ish%, and I got nothing else to do. So here we go. We got a big show ahead tonight. Lots of topics to hit. We're going to talk Miguel Rojas extension. We're going to talk some Alex Cora quotes and how we feel about the former Dodger. We're going to talk about the Dodgers finally addressing Trevor Bauer, FanFest, Fernando getting his jersey retired, and we're going to close by playing a game that the Fernando news inspired. That's why Fernando's at the end. So Matt is kind enough to play along with one of my ridiculous ideas. Hopefully this one lands well. But let's start with Miguel Rojas. This was kind of the biggest baseball news that the Dodgers had this past week. He signs a 1-year extension for 2024 plus a team option for 2025. So already under contract. I believe it's for just over $5 million for this year. He gets, is it $6 million in 2024 and then a $5 million team option for 2025? Am I remember with a $1 million buyout, or is it 5 and 1 or something?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 5. So $5 million again next year, and then the team option is $5 million or $1 million dollar buyout. So he's got at least $6 million coming to him.
Got it. So I guess I was surprised. They just acquired him. He was already under contract. There wasn't seemingly a need to extend him. What was your reaction to this decision?
This doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And honestly, that was I saw it and I I don't I'm with you. I don't necessarily really see the point of it. And it's nothing against Miguel Rojas. I think he's fine. And I've tried to kind of posit all my comments on him and that trade. It's very much under the lens and my criticism and scope of just the front office's approach this entire offseason.
Yeah.
If, other things had kind of fallen into place, if there had been different decisions made and Miguel Rojas was kind of like the extra guy on top of everything, and then they decided to, extend him for whatever reason, great. But he essentially is like one of their marquee additions. And we're talking about, the Dodgers, a team with World Series aspirations. It's a little rough. It's a tough sell, I think. And so for the trade to be held kind of in that regard, and then again to go and do, the extension, I hope his wrist and hand is okay. I mean, when he was talking to us at FanFest, he does have the cast off of it already. He was cleared to start swinging a bat and stuff like that. So I don't get it. But hey, it's honestly, then if you want to look at it the other way, if the glass half full, it's fitting for this offseason because I don't get it has been a popular refrain, I think.
Yeah. Are you ready for the optimistic view on Miguel Rojas getting a contract extension? Matt, maybe they know they're ready to unlock something in Miguel Rojas, and that under market deal of $5 million in 2024 and 2025, we're going to look back on and say, man, remember when they signed that extension and Rojas? I don't know. That's one option. The other idea is he is kind of this utility player that they love, that they don't really have because Chris Taylor is going to be in the outfield so much. And he has the unique ability that a lot of those former utility guys don't have, of he can actually play a highly competent shortstop. He can be your backup first baseman at the same time. So I see the value in keeping a guy like him around. And considering, I believe Hanser Alberto cost him like $2.5 million a year ago. Rojas is much, much, much better on both sides of the ball than Hanser Alberto. Maybe not in the clubhouse, to be determined there. But if we're talking about that same $2.5 million to $5 million price range, just a $2.5 million increase, over Alberto, I understand why they would do this. And maybe they have some confidence that they can unlock some things with Rojas, or that he was not healthy last year.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points and certainly possible. I think my biggest thing is just, I don't know, like, did it need to get done now? Like, is that something that needs to be done now? Like, it's also just the timing of everything, because had they played this season out and decided to re-sign him, I would have thought, okay, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think, I saw somebody saying he could mentor young players. That is another possibility. He already has started working with Miguel Vargas. I know Diego Cartay. I think they've been in contact as well during the offseason. I'm not sure if they've worked out together yet, but, so there is value to that. Like, I'm somebody who does believe in, that veteran leadership kind of being, you can't necessarily quantify that. I just don't know, like, would you have, like, was it necessary to kind of get that done this early? But hey, I guess, you've got that on the books, and now Miguel Rojas, like I texted our staff, the Dodgers locked up Miggy.
Yeah. So Matt, this is a behind the curtain scene at why Moreno is the worst. He texts a group chat of me, Daniel, Blake, and Scott, and said Dodgers locked up Miggy. So Gearman and I immediately think Vargas extension. All right, let's do it. Let's do the 9-year, $100 million extension for Miguel Vargas. I'm in. And then it's like, oh no, they just added a freaking year to Miguel Rojas's contract, and it was about the biggest buzzkill upon Twitter search of all time. So I know that was intentional from you, and I just want you to know I'm disappointed.
It was too easy. It was, it was on a tee. I just had to do it.
Yeah, you did not have to do it. As they would say, you did not have to do anything.
In fairness, it definitely was geared more towards Scott, because he's our big, I think a little bit bigger than you. That's and right. If I'm wrong, then you can correct me. And
you can have it.
I think he's Miguel Vargas is his guy. So it was more to kind of, get him excited for it to be Miguel Rojas.
Yeah, I'll stay on James Outman. I'll wear that mantle well. And,
real quick, Oreo contest champion James Outman. I think that you should start touting him as that.
Well, it's not coincidental in my book, as a guy who works a lot with junior high and high school kids and has played the "can you get a cookie from your forehead to your mouth without using your hands" game a number of times, that my guy James Outman is proficient in such activities. I like the connection between those two things. And so we talked about promotions. Maybe we could get a James Outman bobblehead second half of the season. Maybe I can start getting my hopes up for that. We'll see. All right, let's move on to something that's, let's say this, it's more excitable of a topic than anything else. And it's old friend Alex Cora with some quotes. So Evan Drellich of The Athletic has a new book coming out called Winning Fixes Everything: How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created Sports' Biggest Mess. Basically writing about the Astros. Now, a fun fact about Evan and his book, we're going to have him on the show to talk about this book. It might be at the end of this week, beginning of next week. So stay tuned. We're trying to get a copy of the book in transit. But that said, some tidbits from that book got leaked. Shouldn't say got leaked. The Boston media got a hold of early copies of the book, and they ran an excerpt this past week where Cora is quoted as saying, quote, "We stole that blank World Series." This is in stories talking to former teammates, former colleagues. He added that they didn't even need to get on base to know what the Dodgers pitchers were throwing. They knew every pitch before it was thrown, to which a lot of people around him just gave him confused looks. They didn't understand. Matt, I know how I felt when I read this quote. Had you properly healed from the Astros sign stealing scandal, or did this maybe bring up an old wound?
Yeah, it definitely, like, it definitely opened that up. And I don't know if that's something that ever, like, is really going to be like, okay, like, that happened and whatever, it is what it is at this point. Like, and again, part of my issue is the entire response by people associated with the Astros from that year, their stance and their attitude and view towards everything.
Yeah. And,
with Alex Cora specific, like, I know, it for some people, it hurts a little bit more because he's a former Dodger and this and that. That doesn't resonate with me. Like, yes, he had that one great at bat that ended in a home run, and it's a fun kind of highlight to remember when it comes up. But outside of that, like I don't have like any sort of like emotional regard or ties to Alex Cora's Dodgers career. And so I'm just gonna, I think I'll generalize here and say I honestly think pretty much everybody with the Astros are sorry that they got caught. I don't think they're sorry for what they did, and I feel like that sentiment has kind of been validated at every rich turn, no matter who makes comments about the situation.
Alex Cora played 7 seasons for the Dodgers. 5 of those he put up negative wins above replacement. Okay, so if we just want to put into context, Alex Cora, first 4 seasons of his career, negative 0.2, negative 0.5, negative 0.3, negative 0.4. Then he had a 2.5 win season. Then he bit back to negative 0.1. That was in 150 games. He was a negative WAR player. So shout out to Alex Cora there. I'm with you. Like Alex Cora, I remember him as a Dodger. I don't care about him as a Dodger. I joked on Twitter, and I like David Vassegh. This isn't an anti-David Vassegh point, but when he tweeted out, "Oh, no, Alex Cora is a good dude. I've met him." I'm like, forget that. Like, did you read the quote? Like, he hasn't stepped away from the quote. He said, the person that says this type of thing, we stole that expletive World Series. Like, that is a certain type of person, and it's not the type of person that I like or I want to be associated with, regardless of if it was the Dodgers or somebody else. Now, I feel like I'm kind of past when the Dodgers won in 2020. That healed a lot of wounds for me. I wanted to see a World Series. I got at least one. Hopefully we have lots more in my lifetime, but I'm kind of with you. The headline for me is I definitely don't care about Alex Cora as if he were a former Dodger. I think this is a scumbag thing to say, which lines up because we already knew that he was at the center of a bunch of scumbag things that the Astros did to the Dodgers. And for all the people that want to tell me what a great manager he is or what a good person he is, I don't care, because you say something like that, you are part of something like that, you don't apologize or sort of, confess to your involvement in all that stuff. I'm just not that interested in you, and it's not even like I hate him or I think about it. It's like, I just don't care. Like, you're not on my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this definitely, the whole situation is like, it's not something that I don't think that weighs on you or my mind or, most of the fans on a day-to-day basis. I think it's just, it gets frustrating and disappointing when, stuff like this happens. Like Evan, it makes sense for Evan to write this book, right? I mean, they covered a huge, scandal in MLB history. And so it's just unfortunate that the book, I think, is just going to reopen some of the wounds for a lot of Dodger fans out there. And then, seeing how just unapologetic Alex Cora was about it. And I don't what kind of reaction are you looking for? Like, congratulations, you're a very good cheater. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, bragging about cheating. Like, it's like, it'd be one thing if he was like, no, we won it fair and square. Like, look how awesome we were. And everybody knew he was lying. But bragging about how good you were at cheating, again, it's like just that these are the types of things that actually do apply to our lives. There's so much of this that we can't even begin to understand or compare our lives to. But it's like, imagine being at anything and sitting around with friends and they're like, man, I cheated so badly in that game of Monopoly 15 minutes ago. Like, my wife had no idea that I was just stealing money from the bank, or whatever. Like, it's like in pickup basketball. Yeah, I don't know how you cheat in pickup basketball, but you get the point. Like, it's like, oh man, like I was so much better at cheating than this other person. It's like, who does that? Like, what kind of person finds that something to brag about? I think it's a great point by you. So again, be on the lookout. I think it'll be fun to have Evan on the podcast. I'm curious to ask him about that book once I get my hands on a copy, hopefully sometime this week. From one excitable topic to another, then we're going to move on to some maybe more baseball centered ones. But the other story that came out this week that was interestingly timed was the Dodgers finally addressing the Trevor Bauer situation. This was something we asked. We wondered, would they ever say something? They kept telling you and the other members of the credentialed media that they would get to it. They would get to it. They would get to it. Well, they did on Wednesday with a very select group of reporters. Just 4 people were invited. Nobody else really knew that this was happening. And it was Stan Kasten, Brandon Gomes, and Andrew Friedman. Again, a small group of local reporters on Wednesday. And it covered a wide range of topics. I'll summarize some here. Bauer had claimed that the Dodgers expressed to him the day before he was released that they wanted him back. Stan Kasten's basically said that was a private conversation. I'm not really going to address that. However, in adding that in such a short time that they made their decision, that kind of speaks for itself. So apparently didn't have a problem really addressing that one, answering that question. They said that as part of the process, they spoke to players, fans, coaches, and staff to gauge their thoughts on Trevor Bauer returning. That's an interesting point. When asked why even have that last minute meeting, he said, until we decided, I guess anything was possible, that they did have a strong feeling throughout, and said that the ultimate decision was unanimous among decision makers. And the last thing he said as to kind of why they released him, the commissioner and the arbiter both said that Bauer violated the policy after reviewing all findings and handed down the longest sentence ever. And then he said, quote, that was good enough for us. So a lot in there. I would say nothing very surprising to me, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe the only thing that's sort of surprising is Kasten saying that they did talk to, some players and coaches and other people of the organization, and it's plausible. It's Freddie Freedman before this happened told us at Chris Taylor's golf event that, he wasn't involved and it wasn't discussed with him. And that could very much be true. I guess I'm just not necessarily sure. Like, Freedman at this point is a leader on the team. And I'm inclined to believe that he's somebody that the Dodgers probably would have said, hey, I know you weren't here when Trevor Bauer first signed, but if we were to bring him back and this potentially could happen, what are your thoughts? I'm not going to sit here and call Freeman a liar. He just could have, sort of been falling on the sword for the front office, or maybe he just wasn't really consulted, and I'm wrong in my assumption. But yeah, I mean, I think everything else was kind of to be expected. I agree with you, Kasten saying that they're not going to address what was discussed in the meeting with Trevor Bauer or not, and then following it up with, we made a quick decision. I think that is your answer there, basically. Was kind of funny. And, I think we didn't necessarily hear about it, but I'm sure sponsors were probably involved in something like this. If the Dodgers were to bring Trevor Bauer back, who knows what would have happened with some of their supporters on the kind of business and financial side.
Yeah, our commenter points out that Freddie Freeman lied because he didn't want to get grilled follow-up questions from you, Matt. Yeah, I'm just imagining Andrew Friedman walking out his front door and just going up to random people. It's like, hey, we're thinking about keeping Trevor Bauer. What do you think about that? Can you tell me your thoughts? It's like, what are those three guys talking to fans? What does that mean? Like at restaurants? Like, oh, some guy yelled at me, F Bauer. And so, okay, Friedman writes it in his notebook. He's like, fans do not like Trevor Bauer. Anyways, who knows? But look, it was a unanimous decision. As we said, they paid a guy $22.5 million to go away. I think ultimately speaks for itself. I'll close with this one, Matt. The people that wanted to hear from the Dodgers, do you think they're satisfied by the tidbits of information we got from this one particular interview?
It's a good question. I don't think so, because I don't think it was necessarily publicized enough until it kind of, had already happened. And then there were different articles out from it. I think, Andrew Friedman wasn't at FanFest. I think he had a conflict in his schedule. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Stan Kasten was there, but as we're going to get to with the Fernando stuff, they weren't going to sit. He wasn't going to sit up there and say, oh, by the way, fans, we had this press conference.
Yeah.
But I think that could have been maybe a better opportunity to possibly get the message out to a larger number or a larger percentage of the fan base.
Yeah, I think people will be disappointed, because the biggest question was not, why did you make this decision? The biggest question was, can you talk us through the process of why you signed Bauer in the first place? And that was the one piece that, as far as I could tell, never got addressed, right?
Yeah, so what I think Alden Gonzalez of ESPN may have had it in his article that, and that's something that I brought up too, for Andrew Friedman sat there when the Dodgers signed Bauer and said, we have our vetting process, we went through it. And the way I interpret it from Alden was that it was asked, they were asked about it, and all Friedman sort of said, if I'm remembering correctly, was more, if we're not getting better in it, I hope to be better about it next year type thing. And if we're not, then something's wrong. Definitely very vague and not answering that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, again, I think that's the part that people weren't necessarily going to be satisfied with. And that was the piece that the Dodgers didn't necessarily answer. And so, not expecting people to love that piece, but I think the Dodgers are hoping that that's the last time they have to answer questions about Trevor Bauer, and that this whole thing can be put behind them, which if nobody ends up signing him, I'm sure Andrew Friedman and company are crossing their fingers and toes, because the longer that he remains out of the spotlight and irrelevant, the less anybody is going to think about him and connect him to the Dodgers. All right, let's talk about a couple more fun topics. The first is FanFest. You were there. We had a couple folks from Dodger Blue that were also there. Give me your observations. I mean, I know it's a huge event. There are players there. There's food there. There's all sorts of fun things. We're going to get to a big announcement that came from FanFest regarding Fernando Valenzuela. But from your attendance there, give me some thoughts and observations.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's just fans were excited that it was back. And, it was the first time since 2020 that they were holding this. And when they did do it in 2020, it was moved off of the field and kind of center field area where it typically is held and where it was this year, because at the time they were still doing the construction and renovations to the pavilion and center field plaza and all that. So it was, even though in 2020 they still had it, it was kind of a little bit more of a condensed format. So it was, back in all its glory, if you will. And Jaime Jarrín was there. He was in the press box doing stuff. Fans had an opportunity to buy, different experiences to get to tour that. And I think maybe do a quick meet and greet with him, if I'm remembering correctly. And it was nice. For us, the media side, we have a bunch of, I think, 20 something interviews up, some longer, some shorter, on our YouTube channel that I would recommend you guys go watch after this. And it's nice to talk to, some of the newcomers on the team. And obviously, the leaders, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Chris Taylor, some of the veterans were there as well.
And so, I mean, I haven't been to FanFest. Is every player there? Is every coach there?
Not every player, the majority of players. Mookie wasn't there, which I felt kind of bad for the fans, because this would have been his first one with the Dodgers, since obviously the trade in 2020 happened after FanFest. And then the event wasn't held the last 2 years. So I thought that was a little bit of a letdown and unfortunate for them. Coaches, not every coach was there. Like I mentioned, Andrew Friedman wasn't there. Dave Roberts was there, and he's been there pretty much every year. And he's, come to discuss it. Come to discuss different things with media, kind of, obligations of a manager type thing. But yeah, we get to talk to players. A lot of players go on to the main stage and do an interview that's then broadcast into, a bunch of fans that are standing basically in right field. They're listening, and you get to take pictures. Some will sign autographs, stuff like that. So it's a fun event for fans.
And I know you've kind of hinted at some of the stuff Freddie Freeman said. I mean, I know his walk-up song, that was a big talking point on Twitter. I mean, anything else from any of the players that you particularly got to talk to that you thought were at least interesting, or even just fun questions that you heard asked?
So Chris Taylor went to Driveline during the offseason, and he said his stance on it basically was it's some other players from the Dodgers have gone. It's a tool that's out there to potentially be used, and he said if you're not exploring it, then like it's kind of going to waste. But then he was asked, what did you take from there? And he said not necessarily a whole lot. Like, they'll mainly give that information to the Dodgers hitting coaches, and then they'll sort of tell me what to do. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Okay.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman's walk-up song, that for whatever reason Bad Bunny's huge right now. I know he's very popular, and so there was a lot of excitement that he's going to be using it. But I will note that Miguel Vargas has been using the song that Freddie Freeman's now planning on using this year. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen there.
I mean, I got a pretty good guess about what's gonna happen there, Matt. Is Miguel Vargas? Sorry, bud. There's not money coming your way. There's nothing coming your way. That's just a big fat I'm sorry.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can ask, if you guys, whoever's watching right now, if you want to throw in quick questions about players or anything specific, that could kind of help direct it.
Adam wants to know if they lowered parking prices. Any update on parking prices? I can go ahead and answer that one. I don't think the parking prices are ever going down.
Yeah, no. If there's an update to parking prices, it's probably that they were going to be going up. But that does actually remind me, Dodgers, they're fixing the lights, kind of the light towers at Dodger Stadium, and the ones that I think go throughout the pavilion and stands. And I'd have to go back and listen to the full interview to get the exact details from Stan Kasten. But basically, I think they're going to now be whatever type of technology it is, they're going to be able to make them change colors and kind of match like with the screen and stuff like that. He was really excited. He, I think, like made a joke or alluded like it's kind of like a nightclub. So if you're wondering where Dodger Stadium is going, it's, that, I guess, modern direction.
There you go. Well, I've seen some stadiums where it's like, if a song's playing or the closer's coming in, it's like the whole stadium lights are turning on and off and on and off kind of thing.
It's probably going to be something along the lines of that.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, we'll get to Mookie wasn't giving tours. No. And some people are saying Gavin Lux was sick, maybe, and it doesn't sound like Clayton Kershaw was there either.
Clayton Kershaw was not there. I think that's also just, veteran future first ballot Hall of Famer who has a family at home. We'll see you in a couple of weeks at spring training.
Yeah, and who's been to probably,
he has been there before. Yeah, he has definitely been there before.
Okay, well, let's talk about the biggest announcement that came sort of simultaneous to all of this, which is Fernando Valenzuela getting his jersey retired finally, number 34. This has been a big deal for a lot of people. Obviously, this is a guy that has been what was a fantastic pitcher. The problem was the Dodgers policy had been that unless you were elected into the Hall of Fame, your jersey could not get retired. The one exception to that was, was Jim Gilliam, who passed away suddenly 2 days after his death. They retired his number. That was the only exception. But Kasten did add that they were happy to make this exception. There will be a whole Fernando Mania weekend in August. Part of that will be his number being retired. I just, as somebody who didn't get to see Fernando during his peak, I went back and looked at some of the numbers, and it's a pretty fascinating career because you've got a guy who I think what maybe the national baseball fan doesn't understand is the off the field impact of a guy like Fernando. It wasn't just how good he was and how quickly, because that is very true. It's the impact of a Mexican born pitcher at that age, in that moment, in that city, and the impact that he had. So it was the off the field and on the field. So Josh Thomas, who's a Dodger, sort of a writer that you might follow on social media, he had this. He said from 1981 to 1986, 39 pitchers tossed 1,000 or more innings, 8 of whom were Hall of Famers. Fernando was the only one with an ERA under 3, 2.97. He led all 39 in fielding independent pitching at 2.88. Some other facts about his career: the 1981 Rookie of the Year and Cy Young Award winner. That year, he threw 192 innings, 11 complete games, 8 shutouts, 2.48 ERA in a title-winning year. He made the All-Star game in his first 6 seasons. He finished in the top 5 in Cy Young voting 4 times, 2 Silver Sluggers, a Gold Glove as well. Obviously, an incredible announcer now for the Dodgers for many years. And so all that to say, no brainer. Finally, Fernando getting recognition, and hopefully, there builds some momentum towards an actual baseball Hall of Fame candidacy as well.
Yeah, I think the Hall of Fame stuff is interesting. He may have just been a victim of, kind of playing in the wrong era in terms of how rigid voters still were when he came up for being eligible. I think I don't know all the different committees and how those rules work. I think I don't know if he's already passed through them or if there's one that he could maybe make his way onto.
I'm in the same boat as you. And I will say this about Fernando. Part of what hurt him was I quoted his 81 through 86 years. I said he made the All-Star team 6 times in his first 6 years. He didn't make one after that. So he was incredible for 6 seasons. And then he was good to average to below average for a pretty extended period of time. He made a long career for himself. So when you look at his overall career numbers, they're okay. But I think the ERA is around 3.47. So some of those numbers don't necessarily match up. It's one of these guys who at his peak, the high was so high. And in addition to the off the field impact that he had, to me, that would be the case. Whereas the case against him is just look at the season, the full career, 3.5 ERA. Like, what are we talking about here?
I think though, if you took that microscope to kind of every player in the Hall of Fame, like you could say, hey, why is this guy, like he was good for X amount of years and then, maybe not as good those other times. But anyway, that's a different conversation. We can circle this one back onto the Dodgers retirement 34. I agree with you, kind of, and even Jaime Hadin said it kind of in jest, like about time that they did it. And I think that's the sentiment shared by pretty much every member of the fan base. And Stan Kasten, when he got on stage to announce it, kind of unveil it to the crowd, he said the 2 questions he gets asked most often. One is, when are you going to retire number 34 for Fernando Valenzuela? And the second question is, what is taking you so long to do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And I think, what's kind of funny is they didn't tell it. All that PR told us at some point in between kind of the interviews was, hey, in like 10 minutes, we're going to take you guys all to the front of the stage for a special announcement. And so I just thought, okay. And I turned to Blake and Scott and I said, like, what could it be? And then I kind of said, do you think they're retiring Fernando's number? Like completely not knowing. And that, ended up being it. And it was nice to kind of, I think, for them to do it at FanFest. And I'm glad that this isn't something that leaked. Although I think the LA Times might have had a column from Plaschke that went out like immediately. So it clearly went somewhere. But hey, at least it was kept under wraps beyond that, because that would have been disappointing for it, to kind of get out the night before or early that morning before Stan Kasten could get on stage and then bring Fernando onto the stage as well, and his family.
Yeah. The only bummer now is that the announcement comes in February. We got to wait more than 6 months for Fernando Mania weekend. But Kasten did have a good point in that they had some plans to do like the Sandy Koufax statue and that kind of thing. And they wanted to be able to give the Jackie Robinson moment and the Sandy Koufax moments and Fernando, to give these people their moments so that it wasn't all packed into one year. So I understand that whole thing. I'm just glad that it's finally happening. And that did they give any sense of what else is going to be happening that weekend?
I'd have to. So, excuse me. I think Friday is the kind of ceremony to do it. And then Saturday, I believe, is going to be a bobblehead giveaway. And then Sunday is going to be a replica World Series ring giveaway. And, another thing with this too is, for our viewers that have, or listeners that go to Dodger Stadium or have been to Dodger Stadium, the way the Dodgers do it, like their ring of honor with the retired numbers is down the left field line. For now, the tentative plan is to add a plaque up there, but it's getting pretty full. And so Stan Kasten did say he's going to have to talk to Janet Marie Smith. I forget her exact title right now, but she's basically in charge of, anything kind of going up at Dodger Stadium runs through Janet. So that could be something interesting, is if they have to move that stuff or if they kind of find a different way to sort of display those numbers.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, let's sort of close out before we get to some questions here with a little bit of an activity that I thought of when this came up, which is when you think of the Dodgers and you think of Fernando, you think of his number. The number is a large part of his story, his connection to the team. And so it made me thinking, like, let's play a game where we draft what are the most famous numbers in Dodgers history. Now, many of these, as you'll find, are from great players, but not all of them. Some of them are just weird numbers or connected to special moments in time or whatever it might be. And so you and I are each going to pick 5. Again, these are not the best players. Okay. We're not picking the 5 greatest Dodgers of all time. We're also not picking like our parents' favorites necessarily. You will notice a trend on age. So I apologize to people who are much older than Matt and myself, because you might not like some or all of the selections that we make here. But guys who are synonymous with a particular number, that was kind of the thought that I had. So we'll just go alternating. Matt, I'll let you go first. I think number 1 is probably the easiest decision for any team in any sport of all time. But go ahead. Dodgers number.
Well, see, I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
And it's no disrespect at all to the number that I think we both probably expected would be first.
Okay.
I took like this exercise when you brought it up, and I kind of thought like, okay, what Dodgers numbers like really stick out to me? And obviously the number we're not saying is one of them. And I'm sure it'll come up on either your list next, or it'll probably be my second or third pick after that. So in the interest of kind of trying to zig instead of zagging, or zag.
You should have just had me go first, Matt. You might get crushed for this one, but go ahead.
I'm going to go with 22. Okay. And I think obviously it's, with Clayton Kershaw, it's somebody who is very much like our generation. We've seen him sort of grow up with the Dodgers. And then also, I found it kind of interesting looking at the different players that have worn that for the Dodgers. You have Mark Sweeney, Edwin Jackson.
Ooh, Edwin Jackson.
Brett Butler. And
Brett Butler was a good one.
And good old Chad Fonville.
Okay, there you go. Well, okay, that was number 2 on my list. I'll take number 42.
You have to save the show now.
Yeah, there you go. Number 42, Jackie Robinson is going to be my choice for infamous numbers connected to the Dodgers. Yeah, that one was easy for me. I had Kershaw second, but there you go. So you took Kershaw. You took 22. I'll take 42. You're up again.
So I'm just going to go one number up, 23, and it's Kirk Gibson, obviously,
Okay.
first and foremost. I think his walk-off home run in the '88 World Series is a huge franchise moment. But then again, if you look at some of the players who've worn it after him, you have Eric Karros, Robin Ventura, maybe not quite as memorable, Derek Lowe, Casey Blake, and then Adrian Gonzalez, and most recently Steven Souza Jr.
Steven Souza Jr. Which one of these doesn't belong? I do have some at the end of famous numbers because some of these, have been worn. Obviously, all of these, not all, most of these have been worn by multiple people. So I do have a few at the end where I want to ask you which number and which guy do you associate more. But okay, so you're taking Gibson, number 23, second. And that's a tricky one, right? Because like Eric Karros is the first person I think of when I think of number 23, but that's just because of my age and kind of when I grew up watching games. But there you go. I'll go Fernando next, 34, iconic to me. Glad it's getting retired. And I'd have to go back. I remember part of the story is they have not issued 34. Has anybody worn it since Fernando?
If anybody did, it was very early on, but it's certainly been a while that they've kept it out of circulation. What's interesting, Stan Casson, and if you guys want to hear Casson discussing that, we have, after we're done here, go come stay on our YouTube channel, look at the video. We have a full playlist from FanFest, and in there, Stan Casson discussed this Dodger Guggenheim ownership kind of taking control of the team and still abiding by kind of the policies that the previous owners had the franchise in general, and that was one of them, was keeping it out of circulation.
There you go. Okay, so Fernando's my second pick. Back to you for pick number 3.
Yeah, so now it's getting kind of tough, but I'm gonna go.
For me there was a clear top 4, one of which has not been taken. I'll throw that out there.
Okay, I'm gonna go 55.
Okay.
For obviously Hershiser, Bulldog, just another classic with 23 and Gibson being up there. And again, the Pujols wore it recently. Obviously, your guy Russell Martin, Skip Schumacher. But yeah, it's mainly for Hershiser, obviously.
Okay, number 32 was my other elite choice, Sandy Koufax. This is he and Oral, I think, were the only two guys. Obviously, those are two very different eras, but those are the older generation. Everybody else on my list is going to be a little bit newer, but my third pick is going to be Koufax. So this is going out great for me. I got number 1, 3, and 4 on my list, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself, Matt. You're up. We got 2 more picks each.
Yeah, so this is tough. I'm going to now bring it into kind of a more current era. I guess back to the more current era since I started off with Kershaw. And I'll do 10.
Oh my gosh, the most predictable pick in the whole draft. Here it is.
Obviously Justin Turner, and then I think also with Ron Cey too. But again, this one has significant Dodgers history. Gary Sheffield wore it. Hideo Nomo also wore it. So it's not there's a good blend there, I thought.
Okay, well, I'm going to zag. I've got Jackie Robinson, Fernando, and Koufax, my first 3. And if you're going to ask who does not belong on that list necessarily, it's number 66, which is where I'm going with pick number 4. Has to be Puig. He's almost the guy that inspired this list. I can't see the number 66 without thinking about Puig. So 4th on my list, I'm going 66. Last pick for you, Matt. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, real quick. I do need to clean something up. I misspoke with saying Nomo wore 10. Because I had 16 kind of there on my notes. I messed myself up there.
Well, Nomo bounced around on numbers though, I think.
Yeah, but I think he's probably most remembered for 16.
Okay.
I mean, he might have technically worn 10, but
he did wear 10.
Okay, so but I think most remembered for 16, maybe.
Yeah, 10 and 16 were his 2 numbers that he wore his time with the Dodgers.
All right. So to finish, let's see. I have a couple here that I'm not sure which ones I want to pick.
I've got way too many guys on my list.
Yeah,
I love this exercise far too much.
I'll go. Oh man, sorry guys. I don't mean to leave you with dead air here. I'll do, just because it's unique, and this is the only person who's ever worn it, but 00.
Okay, who we got? Brian Wilson.
Brian Wilson.
There you go. Yeah, there's a few. See, I thought you were going to go. You had an opportunity to go weird and closer, and only person to ever wear it, Matt. And you could have gone far more chalk with 74 and Kenley Jansen, the only Dodger to wear that number. It's not where I'm going to go. I'm going to stay in the closer category with the iconic number 38, for my guy Eric Gagne, because that's another number I think of and player. Yency Almonte now wearing that number. So not sure.
And I see, sorry not to cut you off, a lot of comments for 2. We kept this to players, not so much managers, but yes, 2 obviously would be up there as well.
Yeah, and so I'll throw some others. So the one that kind of prompted this exercise was I saw Noah Syndergaard wearing number 43, and in my head I was like, 43. That's Raul Mondesi's number. You can't wear Raul's number. Obviously, joking. Raul Mondesi's number is not getting retired ever. Edwin Rios has worn it recently. But again, that's what prompted. I'm not a big numbers guy necessarily, but for whatever reason, 43 to me is etched in my mind. Some other ones I liked. 61. You know who I'm thinking of with number 61? Another 90s pitcher. Chan-Ho Park. Famous number 61 there.
Did Josh Beckett wear that also? Do you have
probably?
That okay.
Probably did. Yep, but not nearly as cool as Chan-Ho Park.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then the other one on my list was number 99. Now, this will get us into our game of who do you think of. So I've got like 5 or 6 numbers, and I'm going to throw you a bunch of different options, and you tell me who you prefer. 99. Do you think of? There's 2 guys who wore 99 famously. I won't quiz you on all these, but I'll quiz this one. I want. Do you know either of the 2 guys I'm thinking of?
Yeah, I know. I mean, Manny's one of them.
Manny
right?
Ramirez is one of them, and the other one's a very popular pitcher who pitched for the Dodgers within the last 5 to 10 years. Hyunjin Ryu.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So for me, 99 is Manny, but I looked it up. So, okay, 31. You got Piazza or Jock Peterson?
Yeah, that one's tough. I mean, the kid in me wants to say Piazza, obviously, but I think that relationship between the 2 parties like has soured so much that maybe you just start to lean a little bit more towards recent. I'll still keep it with Piazza. Okay,
Piazza for me too. Again, we're similar age. 15. You've got some choices at 15. Again, this is probably age related. You got Sean Green, Rafael Furcal, and Austin Barnes all in the number 15 conversation. Matt, who do you want to know who's not being taken by me on that list?
I mean, I know Austin Barnes is who you're taking, so I'll go with Sean Green.
Yeah, Sean Green's probably my choice as well. Again, this is just age related. Okay, 16, you kind of hinted at it, is a very sneaky good one. Rick Monday, if you want to go way back. Hideo Nomo, Andre Ethier, Will Smith, with a little bit of Paul LaDuca sprinkled there in the middle. So when you think of 16 on the Dodgers, you mentioned Nomo earlier. Is that who you think of? I mean, Ethier is kind of like a whole generation was the guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ethier there. Nomo, I think I remember more as 16 than 10, but in terms of 16 in Dodgers franchise history, for me, it's definitely more under Ethier.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I didn't think of Paul LaDuca first when I think of the number 16, but sadly, that's where I go. I'll throw a few more at you. Let's see. Number 8, do you think of Olmedo Signs or Johnny Roseborough there when you think of 8? I'm just kidding.
Man, I was going to say neither of them, to be quite honest.
Number 50, are you going with Mookie Betts or Dwayne Sanchez?
You know, this one's tough. And Mookie wasn't at FanFest, but I will side with Mookie.
Okay. Yeah, 8 for me is Olmedo Signs, by the way, professional hitter.
I was going to say, I think didn't and I mean, you're probably not going to have it. I think didn't Mattingly wear 8 when he was the manager?
You know what? That's high on the list of things that I'm never going to remember. Not a big Don Mattingly fan over here. So there you go. Yeah, people in the comments. Who are we talking about here? There we go. Some other ones, by the way, at 27, Matt Kemp was a popular one for me. 29 with Adrian Beltre, another popular one for me. And then of all the current guys, like, you know, Bellingers and whatnot, 5 and Corey Seager is the one that I connect the most. Obviously 35 for Bellinger is an option there as well, but some other interesting ones. So any other guys on your list we didn't get to, Matt? I mean, I just named like half the numbers.
I will say earlier, because I missed it, the 66, when I looked at that, I honestly would never have guessed that Mitch White was wearing that. And I'm with you. Like, I'm not somebody who pays like real close attention to numbers, but like Mitch, that never would have popped into my head. I thought that was interesting. Another one that I had on my list that was close to including was 11, because I think, you know, it's with Manny Mota, who's kind of an iconic, you know, memorable player from franchise history. But then if you look at who's worn it since then, can you guess any of the players who've worn it
Did
since then?
Steve Finley wear 11? Was he wearing 11 when he hit that home run? That was,
I
for
don't
some reason, that's
think
what I
s
thought of.
Was he 11 or like 9 or something?
I don't know. I'll see if I can look it up. Who
So
are the other guys?
while you're doing that, we have Erisbel Arubarena.
Oh gosh, just the absolute legend.
We
Yeah, he
have
was 12. Steve Finley was
12.
12.
We
So
have
I was
Jimmy
off there.
Jimmy Rollins,
Okay.
Micah Johnson,
Oh gosh.
Josh Reddick,
Gee, it's like it's just a graveyard.
Logan Forsythe, and then some redemption with AJ Pollock,
Yeah.
and then Kevin Pillar last season. But I just thought that was like the juxtaposition of everybody on that list was interesting because Manny Moto, like I said, I think he's revered. He's still around the team. Kind of, I see fans stopping him at games, asking for pictures, stuff like that. And then you kind of look at, who's sort of worn that since then. And, one of them is kind of
Slightly different than the other.
Twisting the knife a little bit.
Exactly. I know. What Billy McKinney? Did we have his number on here? No, he didn't make the list. So
no, just missed.
All right. Well, we got a few more minutes. If folks want to throw some questions in the chat for Matt or myself, please do so. We'll try and get to some of those to close our show out tonight. I'll throw this out there, by the way. These shows I know have not been super consistent and super regular. As Matt, myself, the rest of our team, as we get ready for the regular season, this is kind of our time where schedules are a little more flexible. Once things start to get going, we're going to get into a regular rhythm. It might be a Sunday night show. It might not be. We're still working out the details. So just stay tuned. It won't be Sunday nights for the next couple of weeks, but we'll be posting details. So we appreciate the folks joining us live. We like to do these live. So if people want to join, they can. And if folks want to watch tomorrow, tonight, or listen via the Blue Wire Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcast, you can do that as well. So rather than just recording it ourselves, we figure, hey, if 100 people can watch it live with us like we got tonight, then that's great. Michael asks, why can't the Dodgers get any KBO or NPB guys? This is an interesting question. I mean, I would say they have tried in some cases and have clearly not tried in others. I say it's interesting just because the Dodgers have had an incredible level of success with players coming from leagues like that. We just mentioned a guy, Hyunjin Ryu, who came from the KBO and had is still having an incredibly successful career. Kenta Maeda came from Japan. So I don't think it's that they can't get these guys. I think it's just that maybe the guys who have come over, in the case of someone like Ohtani, have just chosen someone else, or the Dodgers just haven't been as interested in Ha-Sung Kim or Senga or whoever it is.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like a real, kind of clear-cut answer. I think every situation has been different. I think they clearly wanted to sign Ohtani, but that didn't appear to be reciprocated. And I agree with you. I think it just kind of depends on, roster construction, payroll outlook, stuff like that type of player coming over, and whether, the Dodger scouts truly believe that, maybe they're willing to spend $20 million on player X, but if his bidding gets up to 30, 35, and they're not necessarily sure how he may transition to playing in the major leagues, then, they kind of have a bar that they just won't sort of go past.
Yeah. Not Daniel Starkin wants to know, are you surprised that nobody has signed Trevor Bauer? Matt?
I'm not surprised that he hasn't necessarily signed yet. I am surprised that there hasn't really been at least publicly, like one team that has been connected to him as having some level of interest. That has surprised me.
Yeah, I had him not on a roster come opening day. So we're in line for that. So there we go. Kevin wants to know, will Miguel Vargas be a stud like Seager or be more like Puig? I don't really understand the Seager versus Puig. I mean, if he's like either of those guys, I think we'd be thrilled. So I'll just start with the first part. Will Miguel Vargas be a stud in your mind, Matt?
I think so. I think one thing I'm kind of worried for him, though, is the expectations are very high. And so I just he could have, a strong start, a strong season. And is it going to be enough for, maybe fans who expected him to hit, 30 home runs type thing?
Yeah.
But I think so. If you ask me, will he be the quote unquote stud in 2023? Maybe not yet, but I can see him getting there.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm all about prospect lists. He has been featured on a lot of them, and a lot of these people in the industry really, really like Miguel Vargas. They think he's one of the safest bets, as you kind of hinted at. Maybe the ceiling isn't as high, but it sounds like, the projection in a lot of cases is not necessarily for this year, but for eventually for him to be a guy who maybe hits around 280, has an on-base percentage about 100 points higher, and then gets about 20 to 25 home runs. If you can get that from a guy who plays even competent defense at second base or third base, which, to be fair, is a question mark, then I think that's going to be good. So can he give you part of that? Can he give you 260 with 20 home runs this year? I think we'd be thrilled with that, right?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, last question here. I think THP asked any outfielders you'd like them to grab. Dave listed off the options, and it was looking bleak outside of Mookie. Did Dave not mention James Outman? Did I miss something, Matt, here? What do you mean?
He did mention James Outman. I'm not sure if this question is specifically about Dave Roberts was asked about center field, not necessarily. And so I don't know if this is where this is going. And he said, Outman, Chris Taylor, Trace Thompson, Jason Hayward, and he even threw out Bradley Zimmer's name.
Zimmer is interesting. I mean, they've got Zimmer and who's the other one? They signed another guy, Duggar, who are both, I think, like high defensive graded guys, like really good defensive center fielders who just are among the worst hitters in baseball. But other than that, I mean, what's not to love about them? So I'll just be curious. Again, reading the prospect lists, there are people that are fired up about James Outman, and I love it. It makes my soul happy. He creeped into a top 100 list. So, and the only reason he wasn't on others in some cases was just because people didn't like sort of the profile at his age. Like, hey, we're not going to put a 26-year-old on here, even though he's, newer to sort of the position that the Dodgers have him playing. So there you go.
I mean, I think if Stetson Bennett can be a college football quarterback, I think James Outman can be on the prospects list if he hasn't exceeded the service time requirement threshold.
Well, it was Brandon Whedon back in the day was like a 28-year-old. Chris Weinke, yeah, these guys were like 28-year-olds. Okay, Sermon King, couple more. What do you expect the contract for Julio Urias to look like? I think it was at Fabian. Someone was kind of going through that it's going to be historic because the number of guys who hit free agency at as young of an age as Julio has with the tracker. I think he said, maybe it wasn't him, it was somebody else, but they were saying like Oliver Perez was like the last pitcher to hit free agency this earlier. Obviously, Julio's career will be far more established by then. Julio going into the final year of his contract, of arbitration. So we will be a free agent in 2024. I don't think either of us expect the Dodgers to work anything out before free agency, but what do you expect the contract to look like? You think he gets 10 years?
I could see that, especially if this current offseason is any indication of how things may go. Yeah. If teams are, willing to spend and willing to do some of the longer term contracts for players. But I will also say that if it gets up that high, I don't see it coming from the Dodgers.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets somewhere in the ballpark of 9. But I do think the Dodgers, it sounds like they're going to be interested, which I'm excited about. But they do have a whole heck of a lot of pitching prospects coming down the pipeline. And so whether or not they decide to just lean on that remains to be seen. Roger wants to know, will Dustin May be dominant? Quick one here, Matt. Yes or no?
Yes, later in the season.
Okay. Yeah, I think Dustin May's great. I mean, the question isn't will he be dominant? The question is, will he be healthy? If he's healthy, I think he will be dominant. Jason wants to know who will be the Dodgers 2023 Rookie of the Year. You've got Vargas as an option. You've got Outman as an option. And then you could throw in any of the pitchers as well.
I'm going to go Vargas just because I feel like that's already there's already an expectation that he would be the most likely candidate. And like I said before, those kind of things like storylines, I think, are factors. And so it'll be Vargas.
Yeah, I think it's him or Outman. I think Vargas is the safest bet because for sure he's going to be basically the everyday second baseman. Jason asks, is there a dark horse? I think if you were going to go for a dark horse, it'd be somebody on the pitching side. Everybody's expecting Bobby Miller or Gavin Stone. One name that has crept up those prospect lists is Nick Nastrini. So could Nick Nastrini, or even could a guy like Michael Grove, who kind of gets overlooked because he's already been up there, but if he takes another half step forward, he'll be ready sooner than Miller and Stone will. And so I could see a guy like Michael Grove making an impact, maybe bigger than people expected. Anybody else you would add?
Yeah, I'll throw, and sorry if you missed it, I was typing. I'll throw Pepio's name in there just because good. I feel like he did struggle a little bit last year, especially, with the walks and stuff. And now because of Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone and some of the other pitching prospects, I feel like he's getting overshadowed a bit.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Someone wants to know, Daniel did get back to us. He said, tell these people the Laker content game never sleeps, even on days off. He's been writing Kyrie Irving articles nonstop for the last 5 minutes. And so there you go. He's doing that. And to the person asking if I had COVID, no, I have the flu, which I don't know if that's better or worse at this point, but I feel fine. I just am still contagious. So quarantining here. Hey, let me close with a couple shout outs. As you can see, I was able to finish my studio, just about finish my studio. And I want to give one shout out to Claudia Latonia. She is on social media. That's how I found her. She's an artist. She made the pictures that you see behind me. So you've got Mookie Betts. You've got one with Gonsolin May and my guy, Will Smith. How to get that one. And then over here, you've got Clayton Kershaw and Sandy Koufax. All these are available on her website. Her stuff's amazing. I mean, I wish you could see the close-up. The Mookie one is my personal favorite. But the other thing I would say about her that she wanted me, I told her, hey, I want to promote your stuff. She said she's taking commissions. So basically for $100, you can pick any player and she will paint that player for you and then send you a copy for you to print. So you can check her out. The easiest place I would say is on Twitter. You can find her at Claudia LL_real, REAL. That would be the place. I've retweeted something that she posted recently, so you can find her on mine as well. So I just wanted to give her a shout out for helping me fix up my office. And then also Foco USA. You've seen us do promotions with them as well. They sell bobbleheads, gear, that kind of thing. They hooked it up as well. We've got a Freddie Freeman bobblehead over here that they gave me, a Cody Bellinger bobblehead, another Freddie Freeman bobblehead, Dustin May, Mookie Betts on the way, I believe. So shout out to them, Claudia and Foco USA. Greatly appreciate you helping me get the place ready to go. We're almost there. Moved into a new place and ready to go. So, hey, we appreciate all of you guys joining us here on a Sunday night. Again, this is Dodger Heads presented by DodgerBlue.com. Whether you're joining us on YouTube or on Facebook, whether you're listening to the podcast the day after, we greatly appreciate it. Matt, enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy hopefully catching up on some sleep before baseball's here in just a couple weeks. You and I, a couple of the folks from Dodger Blue, we're all going to be out in Arizona at the end of the month. So if any of you are going to be in spring training, we'll be there the last weekend in February through kind of the first few days of March. So if any of you are going to be there, hit us up on social media. We'd love to find a time to connect. We're working on some stuff, seeing if we can plan a meetup. If not, there will be a meetup whenever there's a game because we'll all be at that game. So we appreciate it. Matt, enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Well, of course, we got to end it the way we always do. As always, go Dodgers.